Okay, let's try and unpack this. The world's processing the news. Pope Francis has passed away.
It's a huge moment.
And understandably, all eyes are sort of laser focused now on Vatican City.
Mm-hmm.
And the Papal Conclave, it's set for May 7th, 2025.
Right.
This isn't just, picking a new leader for 1.3 billion Catholics. It feels genuinely pivotal.
Absolutely pivotal. It could really set the direction for the Roman Catholic Church for years, maybe decades.
There's a real weight to it, but also, anticipation.
Definitely. And what's fascinating always is how unpredictable these conclaves can be.
That's true.
I mean, think about Pope Francis himself. Just over 10 years ago. Well, not many people had him pegged as a frontrunner.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
It really highlights that the next pope, well, it might not be who everyone's talking about right now.
Exactly. The element of surprise is always there.
And this time, this conclave, it just feels even more complex, doesn't it?
I think so. Pope Francis appointed a lot of cardinals. A lot.
He really shaped the College of Cardinals.
He did. And that's broadened the diversity, geographically, maybe ideologically, too.
Which makes it much harder to spot clear alliances or voting blocs compared to past elections.
That's a really key point. This diversification reflects the global church, sure, but it means those sort of established factions we might have seen before, maybe not so clear-cut.
So does that maybe open the door for a different kind of candidate? Perhaps someone who builds consensus?
It could, or perhaps makes finding that two-thirds majority even trickier.
Okay, so for this deep dive, what we want to do is navigate through some of the names popping up, the ones being discussed as potential successors.
Right. Give folks some insight into the different paths the church could potentially take.
We'll look at people who might, carry on Francis's vision, maybe those who lean more traditional.
And also those with significant international experience, which always plays a role.
It's really about understanding the different perspectives these cardinals bring, what their election might mean for the future.
Exactly. So who should we look at first?
Let's start with Pier Battista Pizzaballa. Currently, a Vatican official deals with Middle East affairs.
Right. Made a cardinal just last year, 2023.
What's interesting is that relatively quick elevation and his work, it's in conflict zones, a really significant region, that's brought him attention.
It has. Does that quick rise mean anything specific? Maybe favor in certain circles, or perhaps just recognition for difficult work done well?
It's hard to say for sure, but his long time in Jerusalem certainly marks him as, well, an international figure, maybe a bit outside the usual Vatican internal dynamics.
That's possible. And interestingly, he could be the first Italian pope since 1978.
Which might appeal to some cardinals, perhaps.
Could be a factor. Another point is his tendency to generally avoid taking really strong stances on doctrinal debates.
Which could be an advantage in getting that two-thirds majority needed.
Potentially, yes. Makes him less divisive, perhaps. The age factor is also mentioned. He's 60.
Which some might see as a bit young for the papacy.
Some might, yeah. It's often a consideration.
Okay, next up, Pietro Parolin.
Yes. Cardinal Parolin. Pope Francis's Secretary of State since 2013.
So effectively his second in command. That's a position with huge insight into how the church operates.
Absolutely huge. As Secretary of State, he's been right at the center, dealing with internal church administration and Vatican foreign policy.
What's his reputation like?
Generally described as, well, soft-spoken, mild-mannered, centrist seems to be the word often used.
Suggesting he could be a bridge builder. Find common ground.
That's the implication. And his familiarity with the Vatican's bureaucracy is incredibly deep. Plus, he has over 20 years' experience as a diplomat.
So he knows the institution and the global network.
Inside out. And fluent in several languages, English, French, Italian, Spanish. That helps on the world stage.
He's not just focused internally, though, is he? He's tackled some big global issues.
Oh, definitely. He's been involved in discussions on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, climate change, human trafficking, really critical world problems.
And his diplomatic work.
Seen as key in improving the Vatican's relations with countries like China and Vietnam, which are, very complex relationships to manage.
So a seasoned diplomat, he's 70, bringing a lot of high-level experience.
A very substantial resume, yes.
Okay, let's shift focus now to Africa. Cardinal Friedland Mbongo. He's the Archbishop of Kinshasa in the DRC.
Right. And his name coming up really speaks to that growing influence of the church in Africa and Asia, too.
It's a major demographic reality for Catholicism, isn't it?
Undeniably. Africa has huge growth in Catholic numbers and a very high number of seminarians, future priests.
So the question of when a pope might come from Africa has been around for a while.
It has. Pope Francis, of course, was the first non-European since the 8th century, though, with Italian roots. But maybe that signaled more openness.
But there's a sort of paradox sometimes mentioned with the African hierarchy.
Yes, it's an interesting dynamic. Electing an African pope would be historic, a shift from European dominance for sure. But often, the African Catholic leadership is seen as more theologically conservative on certain issues.
And Cardinal Mbongo.
While he was close to Pope Francis, part of that council of cardinals advising him, that's significant. However, he notably opposed Francis's 2023 ruling that allowed blessings for homosexual couples. So that shows a potential point of difference.
Interesting. He's 65, so sort of in the middle age-wise for the college.
Yes, occupies that ground.
Okay, moving continents again. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle from the Philippines.
Chito Tagle, yes, often called the Asian Francis.
That nickname has been around a while. He's been seen as papal material, papabile, for years.
He has. Made a cardinal back in 2012 by Pope Benedict VI, actually, so recognized potential for a long time.
He'd be the first pope from Southeast Asia.
Correct. From the Philippines, a real powerhouse of Catholicism in Asia, a region Francis himself really focused on.
And his style. Why the Asian Francis tag?
Well, he's known for a very personable, approachable style. And he strongly aligns with Francis's focus on the poor, on marginalized communities. He worked extensively in developing countries.
He helped Francis with trips to Asia, too, I believe.
Yes, he did. He was actually considered a strong contender back in 2013.
But maybe seen as too young then.
That was the perception, yes. Possibly too young for potentially a very long pontificate. Now he's 67, that's less likely to be seen as a barrier.
And he hasn't shied away from difficult topics.
No, he's addressed divisive issues like including gay people in the church, communion for divorced and remarried Catholics. He's engaged with those pastoral challenges.
He was involved in those synods on the family, too.
Yes, key roles there, leading discussions towards, let's say, a more inclusive approach while still upholding church teaching against same-sex marriage.
Okay, let's look at another Italian name often mentioned. Cardinal Matteo Zuppi.
Cardinal Zuppi, yes. His background really seems to chime with Pope Francis's emphasis on the poor.
How so?
Well, he has very strong ties to the Sant'Egidio community.
The group known for working with the poor and also conflict resolution.
Exactly. And Sant'Egidio certainly gained influence and prominence under Francis, so those connections could be helpful for Zuppi.
But could that connection also be seen negatively? Concerns about undue influence?
That's the flip side, yes. Some might raise that question. But his appointment as Archbishop of Bologna in 2015 continued that focus, working with the poor, with migrants.
He's spoken about migration being a historic challenge for Europe.
He has, framing it in terms of Christian teaching, very much echoing Francis's own priorities there.
And Francis has given him some significant tasks recently.
Yes, appointed him as a special envoy for Ukraine matters. That shows a high level of trust in his diplomatic skills.
Also seems open towards LGBT Catholics.
He's shown openness, yes. He wrote the preface for the Italian version of Father James Martin's book, which called for new pastoral approaches. Suggests a potentially more progressive pastoral stance.
He's 69. Another experienced figure in the mix.
Definitely prominent in the discussions.
Now, shifting gears perhaps, towards a potentially more conservative direction. Cardinal Peter Erdo from Hungary.
Cardinal Erdo, yes. Often cited as a leading candidate for those cardinals who might want a return to the theological, maybe pastoral emphasis of John Paul II and Benedict VI.
So, representing a different path from Francis.
Potentially, yes. He's an expert in canon law, which is always highly respected in the hierarchy.
And he rose relatively quickly, too.
He did. Archbishop of Esztergom, Budapest in 2002, became the youngest cardinal at the time, back in 2003 when he was just 50. Signaled his potential early on.
Seen as a capable diplomat as well.
Yes, known for building bridges, engaging with other religious groups. For instance, he has a strong record attending Holocaust memorials and apparently has support from Jewish leaders in Hungary against rising anti-Semitism.
And he's held significant leadership roles in Europe.
Oh, yes. He was president of the Council of the Bishops' Conferences of Europe for a decade, from 2006 to 2016. Speaks to his standing.
Linguistically skilled, too.
Very much so. Speaks or understands multiple languages, which is always an asset for a pope.
But on specific issues, he represents a more traditional stance.
Clearly. He's opposed allowing divorced and remarried Catholics to receive communion. And he's taken a more cautious stance on taking in migrants.
So clear differences from Francis's approach on those points.
Yes. And he gave an interview in 2019 where he talked about the need to guard the flame of traditional Christian faith in a secular world. That really sums up his perspective.
He's 72, so representing a more senior generation.
Yes, more seasoned.
Okay, one final name to consider. Cardinal Anders Arborelius, Archbishop of Stockholm.
A unique figure, Sweden's first ever Catholic cardinal.
In a country that's historically Lutheran and, well, pretty secular today.
Exactly. And his personal story is quite remarkable, too. He converted to Catholicism when he was 20.
So his elevation to cardinal in 2017, was that seen as outreach?
Very much so. Outreach to minority Catholic populations, recognition of the church existing, and even growing slightly in highly secularized parts of Europe.
And what does he see as the key challenges?
He's identified things like building bridges in a polarized world both outside and inside the church, increasing women's influence, and passing on the faith to families. Very contemporary concerns.
He seems wary of political divisions within the church.
Yes, he's urged against forming parties, which feels particularly relevant right now. He also belongs to the Carmelite religious order, adding another layer to his background.
How does he align on issues like migration or same-sex blessings?
He supports migrants, so aligns with Francis there.
But on same-sex blessings?
He opposes them. Interestingly, he cited potential complications for dialogue with the Lutheran Church in Sweden as a reason.
So navigating both internal doctrine and external ecumenical relations.
Precisely. A delicate balance. He's 75, so among the older cardinals being discussed.
Right, so we've looked at quite a few names, quite a range of backgrounds and perspectives.
We have, and it really underscores just how complex predicting the next pope is.
There's no single obvious frontrunner leaping out, is there?
Not really. And as we said, that diverse college of cardinals Pope Francis shaped makes this conclave on May 7th exceptionally hard to forecast.
Absolutely. The choice they make in that Sistine Chapel, it will signal a direction, no doubt about it.
Will it be more of Francis's path? A return to more traditional ways? Or maybe something else entirely, navigating the specific challenges of the 21st century?
That's the question hanging over everything.
It really is.
So perhaps a final thought to leave with you, the listener. As this unfolds, think about what qualities, what priorities you believe are most crucial for the next leader of the Catholic Church.
Yeah, given the complexities of our modern world, what does leadership look like?
This conclave is a huge moment, a chance to reflect on faith, leadership, and their role globally.
So keep an eye on the news, the analysis. Hopefully this deep dive gives you a better framework for understanding the potential contenders and just how much is at stake.